When I first pulled out the Nothing Phone 1 from its slender retail box, I just kinda stared at it, flipped it over in my hand and scrutinized all the see-through bits and pieces. Nothing's attention to detail is noticeable everywhere. And I'll admit it, I love how it looks. You may disagree, and that's completely allowed. Nothing may be pushing this device as an epoch-defining redesign of the smartphone, but behind all that veneer and polish, there's a pretty decent spec sheet and, gasp, a pretty reasonable price point. While the aesthetics scream flagship phone, the price tag is around $476, £399 here in the UK. Unfortunately, it's not coming to the US at this point. That should put it up against the likes of the iPhone SE, the Samsung Galaxy A series, and Google's Pixel A phones. Don't forget, the Pixel 6a is just around the corner. So, can a literally flashy phone steal your attention away from all those other smartphones? Let's take a look. So if you had to choose between the white or the black Nothing Phone 1, which one would you go for? Both are eye-catching, and while the white version looks cooler without toying with the glyph lights, the black option really emphasizes how unique this phone looks when it's all lit up. Both colorways have a Gorilla Glass cover on the front and back. Nothing has organized and covered up all the components inside, smoothing some of those lines to make for a curated kind of transparent gadget. And let's talk about this glyph interface, as Nothing calls it. It uses over 900 LEDs to create 4 different light-up elements across the back of the phone. Collectively, they light up and flash to signify phone calls or notifications, and coax strangers into asking what's going on with your iPhone. The only thing it attracts more than onlookers is fingerprints, thanks to that glass finish. You'll buff this phone a lot to ensure the transparent design can be properly shown off. I know, I did. Fortunately, you can reduce the brightness and, well, the severity of that light-up interface. There's also a thoughtful warning that the glyph interface might not be safe for anyone with epilepsy or other light sensitivity conditions. As I have a history of seizures myself, it's a nice consideration. Nothing has made 10 unique ringtones with dedicated glyph patterns that light up in sync to lo-fi chippy noises. You can choose from a handful of the ringtones and patterns, and most of them are somehow kinda cool. I think it's something to do with the perfect synchronization of the lights and the sounds, or it might just be the fact that it's not yet another hollow, orchestral stirring of a corporate audio sting. A light strip at the bottom of the Phone 1 also doubles up as a charging gauge when the device is plugged in. I just wish this also worked on the power strip even when it wasn't plugged in. Now, for all those claims of a unique smartphone design paradigm, the Nothing Phone 1 feels and looks an awful lot like an iPhone. Obviously, besides the back. It has flattened edges and just feels a lot like an Apple phone in the hand. There's no mute switch, however, and that might be an intentional design choice from Nothing, given that the founder of Nothing, Carl Pei, was also the co-founder of OnePlus, obviously now a rival. I've made my feelings known on the OnePlus alert slider many times in the past. I'm totally fine with it not being here. Another cute design touch is the red LED on the back of the phone to indicate when the Phone 1 is recording video, like a camcorder from the 90s. It's equal parts nice privacy feature and intentional retro technology nod. Another cute touch, even the SIM card remover. Yeah, the SIM card removal pin has its own little electronics design touch. The handle is resin tipped, so it looks like a little tiny transistor or something. The Phone 1 is a big phone. It actually dwarfs the iPhone 13 Pro I usually use. At 8.3mm thick, it's actually more substantial than Apple's biggest iPhone as well. The 6.55-inch OLED is actually flexible, but not in person. It's still a very static screen, and there's actually pretty substantial bezels around the edges there. The mid-range specification creep starts here with the screen, in fact. It's a 1080p resolution. There are obviously much sharper screens out there, even at the mid-range price, and that substantial bezel is a hallmark that you're not getting a truly flagship phone. It's pretty similar though to Samsung's A53, its latest mid-range device. And it's really not a deal breaker for me. There's also a hole punch camera, which is 16 megapixel resolution, and the display itself is vivid and bright. Refresh rates can also reach 120 Hz. Now, adaptive refresh rates are one of those recent smartphone spec upgrades that actually help a device feel and, well, look premium. The Phone 1 feels premium then, despite the next compromise, a mid-range Snapdragon processor ticking away inside. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 778G Plus chip has been lightly customized for Nothing, meaning the Phone 1 can offer wireless charging, as well as reverse wireless charging, unlike phones using the standard out-of-the-box Snapdragon 778G. Nothing says you can fast charge at 33 watts to get the Phone 1 to 50% battery capacity in 30 minutes, and my testing pretty much replicated that. Wireless charging tops out at 15 watts, while you can reverse charge at up to 5 watts from the Phone 1 itself. I wonder if wireless charging is exactly all that desirable though. Was it just a matter of having something that's easy to showcase on that transparent back? Did the phone need something to shape one of those huge glyph surrounds? Or maybe I'm just a wary cynic. In our battery rundown test, the Phone 1 was able to play a video on loop for just over 16 hours. And that's better than several Android phones we've tested in the last year. However, the Phone 1 has that lower resolution screen compared to many rivals. Software-wise, nothing is calling its take on Android a bespoke interpretation, but it's pretty much Android as you know it. Nothing has added some useful widgets of its own to the drop-down menu. They're a little bit bigger and they're a little bit more multifunctional. Did they change my life? No. Were they useful for pairing and using my Nothing earbuds? Sure. Nothing has also, oddly, put a lot of effort into its voice memo app. It comes with a minimalist tape deck aesthetic, and you can rewind and fast forward through that interface. There's even several noise cancelling options to better isolate voices or pick up environmental noise. It's not podcast ready or even YouTube ready, but if you're recording a meeting or trying to record a voice note in a particularly loud area, it can make those conversations at least audible. Now, if there's one thing I can't get on board with, it's Nothing's addition of a native NFT gallery. I don't have any NFTs, but if I did, I'd be able to track their prices and show them off in 5 different sizes on the Phone 1. But let's move on, please. Now, as it's a new phone from a very new company, I had my reservations about stability, but so far I've had no major issues. The company has also vowed to bring at least 3 years of Android updates to the device that should help keep things stable and secure. Onto the mid-range phone deal breaker or maker, the cameras. The Phone 1 has a dual camera system. At this mid-range price, this is often where things go awry, but thankfully that's not the case here. Now, it might be due to the sensors. Nothing has chosen Sony's IMX766 sensor and combined it with an f1.9 lens with optical image stabilization. The reason why I know that sensor isn't because I read it on the spec sheet, although that's true as well. It's because it's a sensor we've seen in several flagship smartphones last year on devices that cost pretty much double what the Nothing Phone 1 costs. The secondary ultra-wide camera uses a 50 megapixel Samsung sensor with an f2.2 lens. This doubles as a macro, but as ever, don't expect incredible macro photography from a phone. You can expect crisp images in good lighting though. I've been impressed with the still quality from the Phone 1 and I'm a devoted Pixel phone fan. There seems to be some image software tweaks here, but they're relatively light. Comparing daylight shots from the Phone 1 against its rivals, Google's Pixel 4a seems to offer more contrast than Nothing's first phone, but both offered up 12 megapixel images with plenty of detail. Now, with brighter parts of the images, you will notice some chromatic aberrations, a purplish hue around some of the bright spots. With much less light, nighttime photography is decent enough, with the usual night shooting mode in attendance. Well, results were, however, a little noisier than I'd hoped. The glyph interface can be used as a source of ring light to illuminate nearby subjects without the oomph of a standard flash. It adds a gentle, slightly bluish hue to photos when enabled. It's a clever idea, but the execution's a little lacking. If Nothing could offer finer color temperature controls like many standalone ring lights, this could be genuinely useful. The biggest limitation was the 2x zoom, which crops part of the image sensor. There's some digital zoom thrown in if you're desperate, but I soon started to miss the more expansive telephoto options on other, usually more expensive, smartphones. Video-wise, the Phone 1 can capture 4K footage at 30 frames per second or 1080p at 60 FPS. Video quality was smooth and, well, fine. There's a little bit of rolling shutter wobble when you're panning around, and in lower light I noticed Nothing Phone 1 would often roam for focus if I was moving while recording. It would also often struggle to balance exposure between, say, a pinkish sky at dusk and a darker street. At the Nothing Phone 1's glitzy launch event, founder Carl Pace said that their team was focusing on software stability over flashy features. And that's a very odd choice of words when the main differentiator of your new phone is literal flashy features. Nothing is walking a very fine line between gimmicks and features at times, but it gets to do that. There's no predecessor phone to replicate, and this all goes in Nothing's favour. However, its biggest rival, at least where the Phone 1 is launching, could be Google's Pixel 6a, which is set to launch later this month. It has its own unique look and a very similar price tag. Don't believe all the hype, but the Phone 1 makes a compelling argument for mid-range phones, and anyone looking for a phone that looks a little bit different, even if it does pretty much everything the same. For more sample photos as well as our full review score, make sure to check out the entire review over at Engadget.com. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe to this channel for all the biggest tech launches, reviews, and more.